How's it going, everybody? It's Alex, the editor, here. Before you listen to this week's episode of Press YYZ, a video game podcast, I wanted to let you know that we recorded the original episode for this week, and we ran into some technical issues that prevented us from releasing the episode. Honestly, it just sounded really terrible. But our goal of releasing an episode every week stays strong, so we went into our vault and pulled out the original test episode. So, here's the original 5x5 of Best Games of the Generation, i.e. the episode that made Mitch almost die of salt overdose. Thanks, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll be back to normal next week. Ciao.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Press YYZ, your number fun gaming podcast in which 3 Torontonians and 1 Montrealer discuss everything good about games and debate them a little bit towards the end. My name is Alexander Kazina. I'll be your host for today. I'm joined today by the illustrious, the ever-pheasant AJ.
What's up, guys?
The gratuitous Mitch George.
How's it hanging?
And the blatantly blatant Alexander Ballant.
How's it going, everybody?
And today, we're here to make you laugh. Actually, I'm just kidding on that point. We're here to talk a little bit about what we've been doing recently. You guys been having a good time this past week? Real high energy.
Not too bad. You know, working away in real life and not really gaming on the side as much as I want to.
Yeah, gaming's been a hard thing to incorporate into life right now.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, this is technically a gaming podcast, but we don't actually play any video games in preparation for it. So our quality may vary, but we promise again that we will make you laugh.
There's no preparation going into this show. We show up, turn on mics, and hilarity shall ensue.
Yeah, we definitely don't, make dozens of Google Docs and long, extensive threads on Discord discussing these things. I have so many different applications open right now on my computer, it's making my head spin.
I have all of 3 open at the moment. The only 3 that matter. Chrome, Discord, and Audacity.
Oh, I was going to say Mozilla Firefox. I guess I'm the outlier in that regard.
So I go back and forth between the two. But right now, for whatever reason, I just have those bookmarks for the show in Chrome. So Chrome it is at the moment.
I'm an Opera user.
Oh.
You get a decent VPN with it. Yeah, it's not bad. So if you want to watch, basically I just use it to watch YouTube videos that are restricted in Canada.
Interesting. I never thought about that.
There are other ways around that.
Do other browsers and stuff like synchronize like between systems? Like if you have multiple computers, like does Firefox like synchronize not just your bookmarks and stuff, but like the theme and everything as well, and bring everything over, or is it just Chrome?
You can have an account with Firefox. I haven't played around. I haven't tinkered with it too much because I use Firefox at work, and I try not to bring anything from work home if I don't have to. So that's sort of probably the other reason why I have this separation between church and state, one being Google and one being Mozilla. So I think that's enough browser talk for one night.
I suppose so.
Fair enough.
Wait, that's not what the podcast is about? I thought that's what I was signing up for.
I mean, we could discuss all the other browsers that we don't use. Want to talk about Internet Explorer?
You mean Microsoft Edge?
Netscape?
Oh man, Netscape. I remember Netscape.
I'm dating us now.
Wow. What came before Netscape? What was like the Atari 2600 of Internet Explorers?
Phones.
Was it? Were they?
I don't know. There wasn't much internet at that time other than for military application and education.
Yeah, I'll have to research that at one point. I'd imagine it's probably a pretty interesting topic of discussion.
Maybe not for this gaming podcast.
That's true. Any TVs, movies that we've been watching as well that we want to get to before we move on to the next segment?
So, I mean, from a gaming perspective, the only thing I really touched this week was Pokemon, and I'm not going to bore you guys with my Pokemon stories again this week. So from an entertainment perspective, actually, I know our conversation last week around free popcorn had me thinking it was time to go to the movies. So I went out and I saw Jojo Rabbit last weekend. Friggin' loved it. It was so good. And then also finished the documentary series on Netflix about Aaron Hernandez, the former the late New England Patriots tight end who committed some atrocious acts and then ended up committing suicide, and that was a very, very dark trek. Luckily, it was only like 3 hours total, so it wasn't too mind bending. But yeah, that was a strange story to get lost in for a couple of nights.
All right.
So that's the Killer Inside: The Mind of Aaron Hernandez on Netflix. If anyone's looking out for that.
AJ?
Yeah. Well, I went down this weird internet rabbit hole yesterday where I got really nostalgic for like old G4 Tech TV and stuff. I don't know if you saw my post that I put onto the main Kind of Funny Facebook group, but
I did see that.
The whole episode of Attack of the Show from like 2008, just straight up on YouTube, and I watched the entire thing, and I really miss that era of like game television and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that was like a huge thing for me when I was growing up. Like I used to love Electric Playground and Reviews on the Run, everything with Victor Lucas basically. It was like I always would try to tune into that, and just because like at school I would never really have people to talk to about video games, surprisingly enough, and so I just like needed some outlet for it. So it was always kind of like a nice little safe haven for me.
I unfortunately don't have a whole lot of like TV streaming stuff I've been watching either. But Ballant.
Oh yes, I've seen a couple movies this week. As being in film school, I try to watch. The goal is to watch a movie a day, but I usually don't get around to that. But this last week, I watched 3 movies. I watched Swiss Army Man, which is the movie about a guy, a dead body, who can.
Oh
fart.
yeah. What's his face? Harry Potter.
Yeah, Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah, I know. He probably hates being called that. By the way, imagine he's like, no, don't call me that.
Yeah, he's never come out on this podcast now. Look what you've done.
Way to burn bridges already.
I mean, all he's got to do is something else that makes us forget about Harry Potter, which we all know is not going to happen.
I mean, have you seen the trailer for Guns Akimbo? That movie looks pretty intense.
Yeah.
God.
It looks pretty hilarious.
I am so into that.
Yeah, he just seems to like every 2 to 3 years he'll just come out and he's gonna do something fucking weird and then just disappear again, and I'm all for it. But yeah, so I watched that. There was a lot of farting. It has one of the best uses of the word fuck I've ever seen in a movie. I don't want to spoil it, but it's real good if you have seen it. And so yeah, but that was really good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. And then I also watched The Irishman, which is technically my second time watching it, but I fell asleep through the first time, not because the movie was not entertaining, but I was just completely exhausted when I tried watching it. And so I slept through about a third of it the first time and realized that the movie makes way more sense when you actually watch the whole thing. So that's my review of The Irishman.
So I know The Irishman's on Netflix. Where were you watching Swiss Army Man? Is that available to stream anywhere, or?
Yeah, it's also on Netflix.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that one out. That one's been on my radar for a while.
It's very good. Anything by A24, I'm, one of those film bros, is worth watching in some respect. Like, I think A24 is kind of like one of the main studios that's actually doing like really interesting things. Not always good, but definitely interesting with everything they do.
Cool. Well, I'm really glad to hear that.
I was just gonna ask what you've been up to, Kozi. I know you said you haven't been streaming anything, any gaming. I know we talked last week about Half-Life. You've been playing through those. Anything else?
Oh, I mean, yeah, that is true. I feel like we glazed so fast over the gaming part and went straight into what we've been watching on streaming services and the like that I didn't even think, oh yeah, that's right. I have been playing through the entirety of the Half-Life series on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/CozyBearLive, KOZIBEARLIVE. If I say it fast enough, it's not a plug. And yeah, it's been real good. The original Half-Life was a decent enough experience, although it is aged in a lot of ways. It's simultaneously, one of the most revolutionary shooters ever released, but it is also very much a first-time effort on Valve's part, and there are a lot of parts of the game that just don't hold up super well. You can tell that they were still trying to figure things out. It's two expansions that were some of the first projects that were worked on by Gearbox, Half-Life Opposing Force and Half-Life Blue Shift, are in some ways almost a little bit more polished, but obviously they're very beholden in a lot of ways to the advances that the first game made. And finally, at long last, I got to Half-Life 2, and I'm not even halfway through it, but so far I'm supremely impressed with it. It remains to be seen how long my interest in it lasts, but I honestly totally think that there's a future in which, like a year from now, I'm composing a new Alexander Kazina top 25 games of all time list, and this game is in that 25, which is hard to believe because I've played a lot of, so-called famous classic games over the past few years and been like, all right, cool. I'm glad I experienced that. Don't know that it will rank super highly on my personal list, but this one may very well just be able to make it. Well, as I said at the start of the show, we're here to talk a little bit about some news as well. We've all been dealing with hard lives, as we all know. But apparently, we're not the only one who's been working hard. Apparently, the people over Ye Olde Doom Factory, specifically the Doom Eternal Factory at id Software, have been crunching pretty hard last year as well. Mr. Mitch George, I believe that you put this news story on the news dump. Could you walk us through it?
I mean, I think I put all of them there.
Uh-oh.
I get a little pedantic when it comes to doing this sort of thing. So
The run of show maker is inside the house.
happy to run you through the news of the week. So the first article that I found was regarding the crunch at Doom from VG247, written by James Billcliffe. Sorry, I don't want to butcher the name. And essentially gets into how the delay at id Software was necessary in order to alleviate some of the stress of the studio, but that the studio itself has still been crunching pretty hard over the last year. So a couple quotes I pulled out of the article. We were crunching pretty hard most of last year. It goes in phases. We'll have one group of people crunching, so the next group of people are teed up properly. As they get done, they may need to crunch a little bit. We really, truly do try to be very respectful of people's time and lives. We have very dedicated people that just choose to work a lot in many cases. It was nice because we want the game to be perfect. We want it to live up to our expectations and consumer expectations. Which sounds like some PR BS, but let's talk about it. What do you guys think of this?
So, we talked, we have spoken about delays and stuff like that, and not to belabor the point, but you yourself have partaken in software development on your own personal life.
Correct.
How do you feel about crunch in general and them and a lot of these quotes?
So a lot of the quotes themselves do sound like they're coming from folks from the management side of the studio trying to spin it in such a way that there is a positive take to this and that people were really excited and they really wanted to participate. But a lot of times, management is saying one thing because that's what employees are telling them. But when employees are talking to each other, they're not saying things in such a positive light.
Yeah.
Ultimately, having to work longer, like a big issue with software development and not just video game development, is that there are no statutes to regulate overtime pay for those employees. So if I was, or any employee in these situations was asked to work 12, 15, 16 hours, there's nothing to say, like there's no protections in place for these employees. So it's do it or we'll find someone else who will. Which is not a state that you really want to be in as an employee. So a lot of times it is, I'll bite the bullet here. I'll do what is asked of me. I'll try to get this done. And then after the fact, we'll talk to management. We'll try to resolve these things so that they don't happen down the road. And in some cases, it does happen. Management will listen and they'll learn from these mistakes because that's what they are. You shouldn't end up in these tight deadlines if you plan appropriately, you staff according to the amount of work you're going to have, and ultimately bugs and issues and things come up that you have to resolve before you can launch a product. But a lot of those conversations, like, they happen, but then things tend not to change without significant reshuffling from a management perspective. So it's hard to hear things like this as someone who is adjacent to this industry. I mean, there's a reason I work in software development and not game development, because all I've heard are these kind of horror stories growing up, and tried to stay away from that so I could still enjoy what is my primary hobby, which is gaming.
Absolutely.
Sort of the thing of, once you pull back the curtain, you kind of see some of the things you might not necessarily have wanted to see, and it can taint how you feel about something that I personally am pretty passionate about. It just sucks to see. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, like somebody who is in a more manufacturing, physical goods type industry, it's like I've dealt with that sort of like kind of mismanagement before, where their only concern is we got to get this thing out the door, right? And I have done like stupid amounts of hours to just try and make sure shipments get out the door on time and everything. So like I definitely have, props to them for sticking through it, I guess. And yeah, I do feel kind of gross reading some of those like PR style quotes myself, because like it just sounds like management making excuses.
In some cases they are, but there are instances where if you're so if you're so invested in something you're wanting to deliver because you're so excited to see how people receive it, you do. So, I mean, there are people that will forego some of the conveniences to push a little harder, get things done, not necessarily within the time frame you're given, and just push and push and push and try to get this thing done. And that's happened to me before, and we can talk about this offline because I don't want to really reveal anything about what I've worked on in the past.
Do it.
I mean, I don't work there anymore, but even then,
what's the problem then? Slaughter them.
Separation. I still have friends there. I don't want to, burn any fences or anything like that. Like,
are these friends going to listen to this podcast?
One might, but he would agree with me because he was down in the trenches with me. He wasn't in management.
Yeah, that's
Alex, you've specifically you're in school right now, right? So how is your like crunching on projects and assignments going and stuff like that?
See, for me, I'm kind of coming at it with a different perspective where, I mean, and I haven't really like had to face this because of like poor management. Well, the poor management comes from my own poor management, not from somebody else's. So, but also at the same time, it's like I can understand what you were saying, Mitch, about like when somebody's passionate about something, they will put in that extra work. I just think that it's when it's required to put in that extra work, or it's like maybe not required, but it's
implied.
Like, that this is going to be a thing you have to do and not because you want to do it. I think that's when the problems come, because I can understand people wanting to crunch sometimes because they're really passionate about the thing that they are working on. Like, I think of like companies like Naughty Dog, where it's like they have this reputation for detail, and I don't think you just get that initially because you're not passionate about it. I think it develops, but then it kind of it's expected then, and so that's kind of my perspective on it. And so I myself tend to try to work on something to the last minute before like having to submit something that I've been working on, because I just want to see the best possible version of that thing. But at the same time, I also have to realize that like I can't make everything the way that I exactly want it to be, because otherwise it's going to be unhealthy for me to do that, because otherwise I'm going to have to forego something like either sleep or food, and then
or video games.
Yeah,
like
or
we've done.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, that's the worst of them all.
Who needs sleep?
Yeah, I mean, I think too, coming back to sort of what you were just saying, is that like people want to do this, but it also there is some responsibility on the companies themselves to make sure that if this sort of work is required, that you're treating your employees right. Like, people would be leaving these companies in droves if there weren't additional, time in lieu, other incentives. But you look at something like speaking to a film student, you look at something like the film industry. that is very heavily unionized. It is very organized. Employees get the time they need to, live a healthy and normal life outside of whatever their work schedule is. And I feel like something like that for IT, not video game, not software development, just IT in general, it doesn't exist. There are companies that do it. There are many companies that don't because they don't have to. So to see some change in that industry would be nice to see, but ultimately we're just gonna have to wait and see. And I feel bad for these guys and girls over at id Software, and I'm definitely going to want to support this game when it comes out. Not to support the idea of they had to crunch to get this done, but just to be able to express my gratitude for the hours they had to put in to make this thing exactly what they wanted it to be.
You guys have been talking a fair bit here and there, and not that your talking has been all useless. Those have been some really good discussions, really good points that y'all have made. But I want to take the reins for a little bit here, and I think it's appropriate that I take the reins a little bit here because this next story is about a game that has my name in it, ignoring the fact that it also has your name and your name in it as well.
But it's also spelled wrong. We have to acknowledge that.
Yeah, I mean, it is technically spelled wrong, but in any case, Valve is confident that Half-Life Alyx won't be delayed. This is a story that was written up on Kotaku, although much of the information in it effectively broke on a Reddit AMA. Basically, because of Half-Life Alyx, the new Half-Life VR game is coming out soon in a couple of months. Valve hosted an AMA on Reddit today in which they audaciously claimed, among other things, that the game won't be delayed, and confirming a truth, and this is Nathan Grayson's phrasing, that we all knew in our hearts. All Half-Life games must have at least one train. Given that Half-Life 2 was famously delayed after the whole leaky stuff happened there, and Half-Life 2 Episode 3 suffered so many delays that it eventually stopped existing, it's quite a revelation to hear that Half-Life Alyx will, barring catastrophic or transdimensional alien invasion, come out in March. There's a quote from the Half-Life Alyx development team on Reddit. With the exception of some tweaks to the absolute final scene, the game is done. Lots of us at Valve, as well as playtesters, have played through the entire game multiple times. Right now, we're primarily polishing bugs and fixing polish. I think I got those two words mixed up there. What I meant to say was we're primarily polishing and fixing bugs, which is where we'd hope to be at this point in the development cycle. We're confident we'll hit our intended release, and so on and so forth.
I actually do like that last quote, that they let Valve time happen before they even announced the game.
Yeah, so for those who might not know, Valve time is basically this long-running joke, meme, not sure what you call it, where basically Valve will announce a game. They're saying it's going to come out on this date. Inevitably, it gets delayed well after that. And so that brought on the term Valve time to refer to, how Valve's kind of perception of time is way off from ours.
It's nice to see that they learned from past mistakes.
Yeah, Valve is kind of known as one of those developers in the echelon of they'll announce a game, delay it so many times. They're like Rockstar or Blizzard, and then just kind of they will keep delaying it until the point that they feel that they're confident in releasing it, which could be many years after the development. So seeing this is a really nice change of pace, because there's not very many games that I can think of besides Fallout 4, I think, in the past that really recently that has a release date and actually will release on the day that they say it, and it's relatively close to when they announce the game.
Yeah, I agree. And for context, earlier I brought up the whole leak stuff. Basically, to make a long story short, a kind of early version of Half-Life 2 was leaked ahead of its release, just ahead of them announcing what was going to be the original release date for Half-Life 2, and that basically forced them to kind of rethink their plans and kind of overhaul that game as a result. So it's not that Valve themselves have necessarily been poorly organized in the past. Some of these delays have been caused by kind of external forces as well. But yeah, this is great that they've finally gotten to a place where they're able to kind of get this stuff out on time in a timely manner. Whether or not this means that we're on track to enter into a world in which we'll be getting Half-Life games in general on a much more consistent basis beyond Alyx remains to be seen, but this definitely bodes well.
I mean, given Valve's track record of how frequently they've been releasing games over the past 10 years, you might get another game within the next decade.
I mean, I'd hope so.
Isn't this like the second game that they've released? I guess technically this is the first game they released this decade, but last decade they only released like 2 games. It was Portal 2 and Artifact.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's being a little bit like, so like, in addition to all the various kind of third-party appearances that the Portal characters have appeared in, like Lego Dimensions and Bridges Portal, for example, there have been like a bunch of like VR projects, for example, that GLaDOS and friends have made cameos in as well. It's not like, I guess in the traditional sense of like a game, you're not wrong that it has only been Portal 2, Portal 2's DLC, and Artifact. But they haven't been utterly quiet.
They did also release CSGO this decade.
That's true.
So CSGO was 2012, and Dota 2.
Oh, okay, so it's a little bit more than I was saying. And those 2 games are, since they're like kind of games as service in a lot of ways, they do change really frequently, so that's fair.
Yeah. On the subject of services, the cloud, and all the like, Xbox Project xCloud is adding Destiny 2, Halo the Master Chief Collection, and many more titles. This is from Windows Central, and it was written by Matt Brown. Mitch?
You covered it all there. They added Destiny 2, they added Halo the Master Chief Collection, and a bunch of other games. Standouts to me are you've got Sid Meier's Civ 6. You've got both seasons of the Batman Telltale series. You've got The Wolf Among Us. Anything else there stand out to you guys? Nothing really to me.
I mean, I would say the ones that stand out to me are the ones that I've already said, because the fact that they're bringing something like the Master Chief Collection and Destiny 2 to xCloud makes me a little bit more confident that they're confident in this, because those are Twitch-based shooters that really rely on good connection, good input, no like input lag when playing them, like especially playing like Crucible, which I believe is the PvP in Destiny. Is like you don't want to have a delay in that, and you don't want to have a disadvantage when you're going against other people. And so I'm really interested to see how those 2 games specifically perform, because everything else I'm reading on the list kind of doesn't seem to be like it would be affected as much by like input lag. And that's kind of the biggest thing that I'm concerned about with this whole idea of a streaming future, is because I'm somebody who notices that type of stuff. Like if there is a even slight delay, it will completely throw me off. And so I'm really excited to get my hands on some of this stuff.
Yeah, so as somebody who, for some reason, got access to Project xCloud, despite me living in Canada...
I mean, our next story may be for you.
Hey, maybe. Maybe not, because I already have it. I can attest to the fact that it works. It actually works. Like if I was on a poor quality network connection or something like that, the latency that I experienced was no different than going over to your friend's place to play Rock Band after you've adjusted to the latency on your own TV. It doesn't feel too different, and it doesn't take more than like 20 minutes or like a game or two to really adjust to it, in my experience. So
that's really high praise.
It works. It works the same in my experience with Stadia as well. But like xCloud, like you're gonna have like the back catalog of all the games you already own on Xbox if you're an Xbox person. So that is where the difference is going to lie, I think. Because the technology is here. It works. I've confirmed it.
Honestly, just seeing what Microsoft has done this generation when it comes to services has made me... I'm a believer in what they're doing as a company with what they're providing to consumers. And I know I honestly talked to my fiance last week about, can I stomach going out and buying an Xbox all digital just for Game Pass and exclusives and stuff? And honestly, I'm on the fence now. Once we get to next gen, I'm probably going to go all in, and that will be my third party / Microsoft first party machine, and my PS5 presumably at that point will be my Sony exclusive machine. Just because of that, I mean, we talked about this a bit last week, that having these portable experiences where I'm not tethered to the TV is a huge, like, I really see that as a win for consumers, and it's something that I would definitely take advantage of. So that's honestly really going to shape what I decide to do as a gamer next generation.
Now, all this Project xCloud news is great, but you know what's even greater? If all this Project xCloud news was somehow in some way more Canadian. Well, good news. Because Project xCloud preview, or in preview format, I don't know how they want you to say it, is going to be available in Canada beginning January 29th, and you can sign up today.
Honestly, I think you all should do it. Just to experience it yourself, and hopefully they let you into it. That would be super swell.
I'm thinking about it. I just don't know if my internet connection at home right now is probably good enough. I'll sign up for it and see what they give me, but you know,
in my experience, if you can stream a video at like 720p, you should be fine.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can definitely do that. So then if that's the case, then I think I'm going to register right after we're done recording this podcast.
Go for it.
Unfortunately, I don't have a super clever segue for this last news story here.
Damn, you've been on a roll.
Yeah, sorry about that. I only have so much energy for that kind of stuff. So I'll just jump right into it, which is that apparently the Simpsons Hit-and-Run 2, I don't know, it's weird. If everybody already says Simpsons Hit-and-Run, they never say The Simpsons, but I mean, that's probably most correct. Apparently it was in the works at one point and even had a gameplay prototype. This is a story on Games Radar, courtesy of Heather Wald. The Simpsons Hit-and-Run 2 was once in development before EA won the rights to produce the Simpsons games. Hit-and-Run senior designer Joe McGinn revealed in an interview with Game Media that while there were some very early gameplay prototypes of the sequel to the Madcap driving game based on Springfield, I remember our physics guru, Gray Mayer, got connected vehicles working, McGinn says, so you could have a trailer being pulled behind a car with some fun results. It's interesting to hear that ideas for a sequel were actually being worked on at some stage after the release of the first, but alas, it was not to be. We never got very far before EA won the right to the Simpsons movie game, McGinn explains, so sadly, there was nothing we could do but move on. I never actually owned Simpsons Hit-and-Run, but I remember distinctly playing it many times at friends' houses, and I always thought it was a good, fun time. There were a countless number of Grand Theft Auto clones during that generation of games because everybody wanted to get in on Rockstar's pie, and I felt like that was, while Simpsons Hit-and-Run didn't necessarily do a whole lot that was particularly innovative or evolve that formula in any substantial way, it was just a well-polished, well-made, fun game, and I think that it managed to outlive a lot of other clones as a result of that.
Yeah, I just thought this was a really interesting kind of look behind the curtain of how these things get made and the business dealings of the Simpsons franchise, where it did go to EA when the much maligned film came out. Kind of nicked this one in the bud. Is unfortunate.
Like the film
game, yeah. Right? So if more so in the article, EA got the rights to develop Simpsons games, not just the movie game. That was just the first game to come from that partnership. So this game was essentially canceled because of that arrangement around the Simpsons IP, which is unfortunate, and it happens, but just a nice little what could have been.
Now we just got to cross our fingers for that HD remaster for it. Where's THQ? Where is THQ Nordic when we need them?
I would kill for that.
So wait, is that? I haven't been paying too close attention. Is that HD remaster? It is happening, correct?
No,
it's rumored. Very, very, very vaguely rumored. Nothing concrete.
I think people are just trying to will it into existence, basically, because there's really been I don't even know. Does EA still hold the rights to Simpsons games? Because if that's the case, then we're never getting it.
I don't know. Business is hard.
I don't know either.
I'm sure that with Disney's acquisition of Fox, they tried their best to get out of any of those kind of pre-existing contracts, so who knows?
Well, as you said yourself, Mitch, business is hard. But you know it's not hard? It's our topic of the show, which is a little game show. This game show is called 5x5. If you are familiar with the works of Kinda Funny, you may remember that they used to do a little game called Debatable, which was previously hosted by one Jared Petty before he betrayed the company and left in a hurry, and then briefly hosted afterwards by a little man called Johnny Ace and Johnny Ace's doppelganger. And then Johnny Ace had to return to his home planet, and the show effectively died. We decided, you know what? Why not repurpose it and give it slap a new name on top of it and hope that nobody else will notice. So, the way that this works is that my three friends over here will each be bringing forth 4 games that they believe exemplify the best in the topic that we have decided upon for today. This topic, the best games of this past console generation. So, for example, Mitch might say, you know what, I really think that Uncharted 4, as an example, not saying that that's something he is or isn't going to bring forward, is a really great game. It is one of the best games of this past console generation. Let me explain why. And then we'll go around the room. Everybody else will bring their own games forward. We'll go twice around, 3 times around, 4 times around, and then we will decide based on that where all the games rank as we go. Then after that, we will be getting into rounds 2 and round 3, but I don't want to overload people with information right at the moment, so let's just start with round 1.
Let that hype build, baby.
AJ, I'm giving you the floor to go first.
Boo.
Wow, clearly playing favorites.
All right. The first game that I think I'm going to nominate for Game of the Generation. It eventually came to consoles, so I do believe it somewhat counts, but it is the game specifically that started this nightmare scenario that we are in, and that is one game called PUBG, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Okay. I mean, I want to just interrupt for a quick second and say, I don't know what you were going for when you were saying that it started the nightmare that we're currently in.
Fortnite is a nightmare and does not deserve to be on this list.
Yeah, when do we get to rebuke this?
Because you're going first, it's going to go at number 1, but the onus is on you now to really prove your point.
The latest trend that we are in with regards to battle royales, where a lot of people were, for the longest time, trying to copy it. The central point where that began to blow up was specifically PUBG. If it weren't for PUBG, Fortnite would still just be the
Save the World, yeah.
The Save the World, yeah, that's the name of it.
Stop helping him. This is a game.
I can't help. I'm too Canadian. I want to be nice. I'm sorry.
You're not competitive enough for this. I'm going to mop the floor with you, gentlemen.
Okay, guys, we have a long hour ahead of us. Let's AJ keep on ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Honestly, there is absolutely no denying the tremendous. Like, yes, Fortnite is huge. Fortnite is big, right? Sure, PUBG isn't as polished as you might like it to be, but it's the inflection point. It is the point in time that began the trend of the specifically the battle royales. And honestly, as over the last few years, fewer types of games have really sparked imagination the way that a battle royale has, and that initiated with PUBG, so it deserves to be on the list.
All right, cool. And indeed, it is on the list at number 1. But how long will it remain there? We'll have to see when I ask Alex what he wants to put on the list next.
Oh boy. Do I go with a hot take right now, or do I go with something safe? This is the question.
You have to be strategic. Remember that.
Hot takes, baby.
Oh, I've got a couple of those. I'm excited. But I think I want to go with something a little bit safer right now, because I want to get myself on the board. And so the game that I'm going to pick as one of the best games of the generation, and I think it changed first-person shooters as we know it, and I hope that we see a lasting impact on it. And the answer is Doom 2016. Doom 2016 revived a dead franchise in Doom. Doom 3, people really didn't like all that much when it came out. I think it's got a better reception now in retrospect, but at the time, no one really gave a shit about it. And it wasn't really doing anything interesting. Like, they made Rage, and no one really cared about that. And Doom 4, when it was originally called that, no one really cared about that. Until it just became Doom 2016, when they rebooted it. And it's just such an amazing first-person shooter. It's kinetic, playing on... Because I've played it on the PS4, I've played it on PC, like on a really good gaming PC, and both experiences have been incredible. It's so fast for a first-person shooter. It completely took away all of the let's hide behind cover, shoot, hide behind cover, shoot, and said, what if you just kept moving? What if all the animations are so fluid? What if you didn't need to aim? What if you didn't need to reload? But there's still so much strategy that goes behind every decision. You have to be thinking 3 moves ahead, 2 moves ahead. You have to be thinking like a mile a minute, because if you're playing it on the hardest difficulty, you can die instantly. And I think there's so much to it. It's so replayable. I don't know how many times I've played through the game. I absolutely love it. And I think it was such a great game. It had a really fun story that was in the background. It wasn't important, but you could experience it if you wanted to, or you could be in the shoes of the Doom guy and it just think, what's the next thing I get to kill? And I think there's so much to it. It's a beautiful looking game. Hell, it even works on the Nintendo Switch, which I haven't personally played that version of it, but from what I've been told, it works pretty well. And so the fact that you can have a game of that caliber on a handheld device, I think is something that should be noted. And so, yeah, my answer is Doom 2016.
Next time we're together, you're trying this game on the Switch. That's where I own it.
Oh, I would love to try it.
Well, I gotta say, you argued your case for Doom 2016 really, really well. And I'm gonna, I need to put my biases and experiences out there for everybody to know. I have not played PUBG, and I have played Doom 2016. However, even though in theory I should give the benefit of the doubt to PUBG, I'm still hung up, AJ, on the fact that you started out by describing PUBG by saying it was the thing that got us into the shitstorm we are in today.
Yeah, absolutely. This Fortnite shitstorm that we are in today it should have started and ended with PUBG, because PUBG was such a good moment. Every match felt like a horror movie. But then, Fortnite came out and kind of ruined it, in my opinion.
When we get to round 2, you're going to have ample opportunity to kind of like reassess why PUBG is the GOAT, basically, and allow it to reclaim its former number 1 spot. So keep that at the back of your mind for the time being. All right. The current ranking is Doom at number 1 and PUBG at number 2. Mitch, are you ready to make number 3, 2, or 1?
Oh, it's number 1 by a long shot, because if Alex was going for one that's going to be up there, I'm going straight for the jugular. And I'm going with God of War.
All right.
Because if we're trying to place on this list, I'm putting my favorite game of all time right up there at the top. There's so much to say about God of War. It rebooted a franchise that most people had written off as being derivative, paint by numbers almost. The last entry in the game on the PlayStation 3, God of War Ascension, was just, hey, let's do God of War with multiplayer. And at that point, you figure, okay, this franchise is dead. You're not bringing this back. But Cory Barlog and his team, they did something that I couldn't have even imagined of them doing with this franchise. They took it, they introduced a brand new gameplay mechanic. That Leviathan axe feels so satisfying to bring back, to use in combat. The writing is phenomenal. I didn't want to get out of my boat half the time because of the stories that were being told to me. So I just sat there for hours with Kratos in a boat, listening to the backstory of these characters in this world, and I couldn't get enough of it. and I'm going to try my best to stay away from spoilers, but the father-son journey, the narrative they tell between Kratos and Atreus is just, it's beyond what I could have ever imagined a video game story being. And that's why, for me, this has to be at the top of the list, and it has to stay there all night long.
I'm going to agree with you partway there. I'm going to put it at the top of the list. I can't guarantee that it's going to stay there all night long. And in fact, I want to let you know, Alex and AJ, when we get to round 2, the onus is on you to knock this to the bottom, all right?
The bottom? That's such bullshit.
I've been thinking about my replies because I knew God of War was going to be on the list. If I wasn't going to...
Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Are you supposed to go next?
I wasn't going to make any points against it. I was just going to say that I prepared arguments against games that I had a feeling were going to be on the list.
All right. Totally fair.
I'm not going to spoil what those are.
Totally fair. If you had gotten into the arguments, I would have been forced to subtract 15 points from you, but I think that you managed to save yourself by the skin of your teeth.
I know what I'm doing.
All right.
We'll see.
AJ, the circle has come around, and the ball is back in your court.
Oh boy. So I've thought long and hard about this. What game has had a bigger impact on society as a whole this generation? What game got people off their butts and outside? That game is Pokemon Go.
Oh.
And it is probably one of the most important games that has come out this generation.
Yes.
Fuck, I knew this was coming.
If you can look back on YouTube and see crowds and crowds of people all around the world racing, running across cities, running across fields, everything, playing together. World peace was achieved for a blip, a moment in time, thanks to Pokemon Go. There are few games that could have ever had that level of impact, and it made Pokemon real. They pretty well did that, and that it deserves to be on this list, absolutely, for sure.
I'm tearing up right now. That was so beautiful. When I was living in Japan in 2016, I had a really interesting experience playing that game where, of course, that game was also very, very popular in Japan. And I used to go to this one park in downtown Tokyo where after work, like, Japanese businessmen and businesswomen by the hundreds would basically all go and play Pokemon Go in this one park. And they wouldn't be communicating with each other. They wouldn't be talking with each other. They would just be kind of like standing around in one area. Then somebody at the other end of the park would notice, oh, hey, shit, a Driftini just spawned here. A really like popular Pokemon just spawned here. Everybody silently, without saying anything, would just immediately start walking towards the other end of the park. It was freaky like nothing else I had experienced before. And for that reason, it's got to go to number 1.
That is such bullshit, and I'm going to knock it down. You just wait.
Oh, well, you'll have to wait a little bit longer because Alex is technically going next.
Okay. Well, one of my picks has definitely been stolen because Pokemon Go was definitely on my list. But no matter, I've still got plenty of others to pull from. And so the next game that I think just deserves more recognition because I just think it did something very unique with a very familiar game. And that game is Tetris Effect on the PS4. Tetris Effect, I think, takes a game like Tetris, which everyone has played, everyone knows what Tetris is, and did something really new with it. It created a unique experience with it, with music, visuals. If you've played it in VR, it is an almost out-of-body experience in a way. The way that your controller, the way that the lights glow on it. It's the first time I've ever really enjoyed having the light bar on my PS4 controller. The way that it vibrates along with the songs, it makes you feel like you're part of it because every vibration is in sync with the music, no matter what move you do. It just takes a game like Tetris, which is already, in some ways, the perfect game, and enhances it even further than I don't think anyone thought was possible. Everyone thought Tetris was perfect on the Game Boy, but I personally think that Tetris Effect is the best version of Tetris because it feels so good to play. It really enhances more senses than just like touch and sight. Like it hits everything except for smell. We're not there yet, but I think it's just such a visceral experience that I think everyone needs to experience. You just need to be on the biggest screen possible or a VR headset and just have like really nice audio and just let it experience it, because I don't think it's just a game. I think it's an experience.
You argued your points very, very, very well. However, I was disappointed that you did not bring up what I personally think to be the superior Tetris experience of this past console generation, which was Tetris 99.
That's fair.
And
that's good too.
Again, you argued your points very well, so I'm not going to put you low on the list, but I'm afraid that I can't put you any higher than the number 3 slot. So above Doom, but below God of War. All right, Mitch, what's your second one?
Looking at my list, I can see so many good arguments against what everyone else is saying. So all these games are great. They've been moments. They've been experiences people have truly enjoyed this generation. But for me, the game that has defined this generation and changed what we think about action-adventure games as a whole, that is being emulated nowhere near to as perfect as this game was, is The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. There wasn't any reason day one to go out and buy a Switch except for this game. This game changed the way we look at action-adventure games as a whole. It took a formula for a game that's existed for, what, if you want to look at the 3D Zelda games since the N64 days, or just as a whole since back in the NES days, and completely turned it on its head while still maintaining that core character. Like, not characters in the individual, like Link or Zelda or whatever, but just the way that game feels, the way that story is presented, the artistry behind, like, you could tell that the amount of years that Nintendo put into making this game was well worth it once the game came out. Because we were first shown this game back on the Wii U days, and when we were first shown it, we didn't know it was going to be a Switch title, and it ended up being the single greatest reason, not the only reason, mind you, to own a Switch year one, was to own this game and be part of that zeitgeist, talk about this game. I have friends who are playing through this game now and are just baffled by what they've done with the physics system. It's a work of art. It is arguably the best game of this generation.
Unfortunately, while I actually have played a fair bit of The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, I personally never found it to be my personal cup of tea, to be honest. And as a result, I didn't go through with it in its entirety. However, you made a very specific point of stating that The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild was one of the greatest reasons to own a Switch, not the only reason to own a Switch, which means that in theory you are leaving room for Tetris 99. So I'm going to put it above Tetris Effect at number 3.
Fine. I can understand that. And you pulled the wind out under my sails for that one, because that was my argument coming back for round 2. But we'll see if we come back to that.
I mean, you're currently occupying the number 2 and the number 3 slots of this list.
But it's not number 1, and it's wrong, and you know it, and I'm going to fix that.
AJ, what's your third pick?
So my third pick is a game that came out at a time where Game of Thrones was good, and everybody was itching for a little bit more of that. But, you know, George R.R. Martin's not going to write his book or something like that. But then there was this game. This game came out in 2015. It's called The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3 fit into a world where, like I said, Game of Thrones was good and everybody was super hyped for it. And scratched that itch of needing to continue in this world, in a world like it, after the season of the year had finished. Not to mention, it's now been revitalized at the end of last year and the beginning of this one, with the Witcher TV show that has just come out. And that in itself re-encouraged people to go and rediscover this game and realize how good it actually was. And I realize my answers and my debate here it's fairly short, fairly sweet, but it absolutely deserves to be on this list for not only coming out at a time when the world needed it, but after the world turned on Game of Thrones, and then the show itself revitalized it so well. It's hard to articulate just how important this game is and why it should be there.
I've thought long and hard about this. I thought long and hard. And Mitch George, I can see on Discord is trying to influence my opinion. I'll let that slide. I won't let it influence what I currently think. However,
points.
I've been thinking about it, and you know what? There was a brief shining moment in the history of the internet, if you recall, where it seemed like we were going to get a Legend of Zelda Netflix series, and it never happened. So the fact that you reminded me that The Witcher got a Netflix series and The Legend of Zelda did it makes me have to put it above The Legend of Zelda.
That has nothing to do with how the game plays. Are you kidding me right now? I'd argue PUBG's a better game than The Witcher 3.
Welcome to Debatable.
I need to roil you guys up so that the debates will be spicy. You know that, right? That's the way these work.
Hey, you heard it here first.
Or you can make a good list.
Well, again, the list is entirely in your hands. I'm just a, what's the term? Like like the person with the scales. Yeah, exactly. I'm just a moderator.
You're the Alex Trebek to my what was the name of the guy that won all the games of Jeopardy, which will be me by the end of this.
Yeah, you're that person.
Yeah. I'm that person.
Alex.
Ooh, man, there's some room for improvement on this list is what I'm thinking. And so
Agreed.
I mean, what do I do? Do I follow my heart or do I follow my mind and go with some easy picks? I don't know.
Whatever you're doing, you're following a bad decision, so it can't be all that bad.
Yeah. I would say this is going to kind of go in line with The Witcher 3 in some ways. I would say Red Dead Redemption 2 should be on this list. I think Red Dead Redemption 2 took everything that was set up in the first game. Even though it is a prequel, it still was taking a lot of the things that was set up. Things like the character of Dutch, the things like John Marston as a character, and expanded upon it in such a way that I thought was very thoughtful. The storytelling in that game, I honestly think, is better than God of War. I think God of War does things well, but I think Red Dead Redemption did it way better. I think Arthur Morgan is one of the best protagonists I've ever played in a game. I think Arthur Morgan is, like, you know where he's coming from by the beginning of the game, and by the end, he's a completely different person, but it feels believable. I think the game was just so huge and so all-encompassing, and I never felt like there was never something to do. I was always encapsulated. It's one of the games, it is the game on my PS4 that I have the most amount of hours played into it, because I just wanted to experience that world. I think all of the side quests, there was so much to do, so much to explore, so much to figure out, so much to find out about this world that I thought was so great. I thought there was so much detail put into it by Rockstar that I think shouldn't go unnoticed, but some of it does just because it's so minute. I think Red Dead Redemption is an amazing story, and for just saying, for $90 Canadian, you got your fucking money's worth. It is a fantastic game, and I enjoyed every second of it, all 95 hours I put into it.
You raised a lot of good points, and the last thing that you said, rang especially true. It can be pretty frustrating to walk into a game store and be like, oh man, this AAA game is going to be great. Ah, shit, $90? And it's weird because I feel like we don't apply the same kind of logic when we're buying clothes or food, but it is good knowing that this, amazing AAA game that we're picking up is also well worth the amount of money that you're paying for it in terms of hours that you're going to log into it. And for that reason, and also partially because I feel a little bit bad about the fact that Tetris Effect and Doom are currently at number 5 and number 6, I'm going to put you at number 3 with Red Dead Redemption 2.
This list that is a travesty, and I do not support it in any way.
All right, Mitch.
Okay. My next game is arguably one of the greatest games of all time. It is one of the best-selling games of all time. It is the best-selling game in its genre, and I can see at least 4 games here that have had character requests for that game come from those games. And I know I'm beating a dead horse here when it comes to my boy Nintendo, but one of the best games of this generation, if not the best, is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So you take what is the best-selling fighting game of all time that's only been out for, a year and a bit? You take every major notable... Like, Sakurai did something with that game that no one thought he could do. He was able to get everybody to play nice together, to get every character, every stage, every song that's ever been in a Smash Brothers game back for this one game, which is just, I don't know how he did it. He's a wizard. And we continue to get content that people are ravenous for. People love the mini little Sakurai directs when he goes in and plays the same character for 40 minutes with 3 controllers at one time because he's some sort of weird demigod that can do crazy things with video games. And you can see the love and care and attention that he and his team have put into this game, bringing together so many iconic characters, bringing in characters from Microsoft when it comes to Banjo and the recently announced Cuphead skin. You look at representation from some of the greatest games of all time, like Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy VII. There have been requests for Doom Guy to be added to Smash Brothers. There's been requests for Tetronymos to be added to Smash Brothers. There's been requests for Kratos to be added to Smash Brothers. People just want to see all of these iconic characters come together, battle it out, and you all, like, I could lose 17 games of Smash in a row and I would still be having a good time with my friends when I play this game, because what they've done with the systems and the mechanics is just, it's above and beyond any other fighting game we've had this generation, and is arguably one of the greatest games of all time, let alone of this generation.
You argued your point very well, Mitch. However,
Thank you.
I feel like your answer is incomplete, because AJ brought up a very good point on Discord, and his point is the words "Fire and Emblem" in quotes. I don't really know.
That's bullshit. You said earlier we weren't looking at
Hold on.
Discord.
I'm not saying your choice of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is disqualified. I just think you need to argue right here, right now, 30 seconds, why it's bullshit. If you think it's bullshit.
Why what is bullshit? Saying Fire Emblem?
If you think it's if it is bullshit, you can say why it's bullshit. If you don't think it's bullshit and you agree that it's a problem, you can say it's a problem.
I would argue that it's not a problem. Sakurai is bringing together characters he feel will mesh well within this universe, within this game, keeping it balanced as best he can with the number of characters that we're adding to this game. Fighting games rely on a well-balanced system. The Fire Emblem characters are some of the best performing characters when it comes to competitive Smash. People are fans of these characters, whether or not they know them from Fire Emblem or from Smash. There were a lot of times where a character was introduced in Smash before it was introduced in its own Fire Emblem game. And his affinity for that series, like, this game is absolutely a love letter to that series because it's something he loves. And that's fine, because he's given us such a masterpiece when it comes to the game he's put together. He deserves the opportunity to bring together the characters that he wants to see in this game. And honestly, if he keeps giving us, like, we are getting 6 more DLC fighters between now and December of 2021. I would bet you that none of those are going to be Fire Emblem characters. He got it in here, and every other character that's going to come after this is going to be a banger, just like the first 4 characters of the DLC pass have been. And once Byleth comes out next week, you can bet your bottom dollar that people are going to enjoy playing that character because of how diverse its weapon set is in the game compared to other Fire Emblem characters.
That was very well argued, but that was way more than 30 seconds, so that has to be number 2.
I'll take it. Bullshit, but I'll take it.
All right, AJ, the final rotation. What's your 4th pick?
Oh boy. So the 4th game that I choose to nominate here, I credit it with helping me better understand what it might be like to be interested in sport. This game came out in 2016, consoles and PC, and immediately was a hit and has since spawned a league of its own. And that game is called Overwatch. Overwatch being the competitive character shooter, it did something different from other competitive games, and it brought a lot of heart into a space where there wasn't. So you think of something like CS:GO, where great game competitively, right? But all it is literally one team versus the other, buying the odd weapon here and there between rounds, and pull the trigger, other guy's dead. Strategy behind Overwatch and team builds and seeing what works with what and everything. It made me understand sports in general a lot more than I anticipated it would, and that is why I think it should be on this list.
You know what? I'll give you the number 5 spot. I think that I can't quite bring myself to get jazzed about Overwatch in the way that you can, but I think that you made an interesting argument about the game that I've never heard anybody make before. I've never heard anyone be like, "Oh yeah, this digital video game with its, eccentric cast of characters and, unrealistic physics and weapons and universe made me understand something better in real life." So I'll give you the number 5 spot. All right. Alex, what's your number 4 pick?
Okay, well, my goal here is to knock PUBG off the list, because that does not deserve to be on this list at all. So, what I'm going to say is, I've got 2 that I think really should be on here. I'm going to pick one that I really think encapsulates the generation well, and it's going to be Destiny 2. I think Destiny as a franchise was very interesting because it started the generation with being super hyped up, and it comes out, and honestly, the first one, kind of disappointing. It starts off in a really, really bad place. Then it starts to get some expansions that are also disappointing, but then it gets a good expansion that really starts to turn the game around. That's just the first one. Like, I'm putting Destiny 2 on the list because here's the thing. Destiny 2 did the same fucking thing. It releases, it's not that great when it comes out in 2017. They get a couple of expansions. The expansions are pretty not great. But as soon, first off, then Forsaken comes out. Forsaken is very, very good. Forsaken starts to correct it a little bit, starts to make those changes. I see some skepticism, but I'm just saying it's the start. But then something really key happens last year. Bungie and Activision split, and that was huge because literally weeks after that decision was made, the game immediately started to make really, really consumer-friendly choices, like cross-play on everything. I can play Destiny 2 on my PC, then if I want to, start playing it on my PS4 if I want to. Then if I had an Xbox, I could play it on there, and all have the same character. That's huge for Destiny, because that was one of the big things, is like, I have people who play on PC, I have some people who play on PS4. I couldn't play with them both because I was mostly playing on PC. But now I can have my character jump back and forth between them. And so I think that was a crucial decision to why Destiny 2 is in such a great spot that it's in now. And I think it's only going to get better. I think because Bungie has talked about how they want to continue to update this game for the better, and support Destiny 2. Like, under Activision, they would have probably made Destiny 3, which would have probably been in a very bad spot when it came out because Activision would have forced them to release it when they really didn't need to. So I think these are big things that are crucial to Destiny. And also, just talking about it just on a gameplay level, it's just fun. Bungie has perfected first-person shooter on console, on PC. Like, it's just a fun game to play. It's fun to play, whether it be competitive, fun to do raids. Like, the raids are so much, like, yeah, they're a time investment, but they really are just like, you get invested in it and you want to stay on for multiple hours to finish whatever you're doing. So I think Destiny 2 really encapsulates the games as a service that this generation was really consistent of, but like showed the redemption that a game like it can have, that I think is just something that needs to be recognized.
Here's the thing, Alex. I'm not sure where I land. And the reason why is because he said that it feels and plays great. However, I had the pleasure of playing both Titanfall 2 and Apex Legends before I got into Destiny 2. And after playing both those games, I was kind of disappointed by the way that you couldn't really slide in Destiny 2. I want you to argue and explain to me why it is that the sliding in Destiny 2 is perfectly fine the way it is.
Well, I think that the sliding, I think Apex and Titanfall, they rely on it more, where I think Destiny is more of a verticality type experience, which I know Titanfall is as well, but I think the verticality in Destiny is different because it's more floaty, and which in that case is a pretty good thing, because I think it also flows well with the characters that you have by having like the not supernatural abilities. I can't think of the word to describe them, but I think it all just meshes well. And I think personally, I didn't have a problem with the sliding. I understand saying that it might not be as good as these other options, but I think it makes up for it in just like the abilities that you get for all the classes, whether it be Titan, Hunter, or Vanguard. And I think it's just like, I think it just meshes well with the art style choices and just overall feeling.
I still don't know how I feel about the slide. However, I do respect somebody who says, you know what, it wasn't an issue for me personally. So for that reason, I'm going to put it at number 5.
I don't even know how to react to where Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is right now on this list. I'm on the verge of tears.
All right, Mitch. Your time has come.
Fine. Okay. The last game that we're adding to this list, it does something different than every other game on this list. It is inspired by some of the greatest games of all time, and in some cases surpassed them in what it was able to accomplish. It comes from a small studio, a small dev team that put their heart and souls into this game, and it shows in the product. And that game, my friends, is Shovel Knight. So Shovel Knight is arguably the best 8-bit game that has been released in this past console generation. It has surpassed anything that I could have initially thought about this game when I first heard about it on Kickstarter. They promised a few expansions and some multiplayer. I'm just like, there's nothing real special about this game when you first hear about it, and then you play it. And the precision physics in this game, the precision platforming they have is bar none the best we've seen this generation. They do something that is unique to their game, yet inspired by great games of the past. They've stuck to their guns. They've released all the DLC they promised. Every expansion has been a banger and has been so much fun to play through with the different knights. They brought that multiplayer element, which is a fun, nice little couch competitive a la Smash game. It nice time sink when you have some friends over. There's not much more I can say about this game. The soundtrack is phenomenal. It's a masterpiece. It's one of the best games we've had this generation, and arguably one of the best 8-bit platformers we've ever had. And that's why that has to place on this list.
So personally, when I played Shovel Knight way back when it came out, I wasn't super blown away. I'm like, this is a well-made, balanced, polished 2D kind of 8-bit inspired platformer. But I thought that, I don't know, it was maybe like.
Can I interject? Think about it this way. If you look at this list, all you see are games that have been funded and put out by large AAA publishers and platform holders. What would it say to our audience and to the folks out there to say, no, even a small single-digit person dev team who put their bootstraps on, who go to work every day and build something beautiful, regardless of its scale, is deserving of placing on a list as prestigious as the one that you're putting together right now?
You know what? That's a really good point. And for that reason, I'm going to put it above Destiny 2 at number 5, just because for the metaphor of it being this small, lovingly crafted game, as opposed to, and not to like crap on Destiny 2 too much, but you know, it is a game that has for a very long time had like a bunch of fingers in the pot. Everybody's sort of trying to control it. It's getting kind of like pushed and pulled around in every which direction, and the way it's currently at today is in a good spot, and it's improving and it's getting better. But I feel like you can't you can't beat the sublime, narrative of just a small group of people, pouring their hearts and passion into, making Shovel Knight the best little game it can be.
And just to add to that, if you haven't yet played the latest expansion to it, King of Cards, they introduced a card game very similar to Gwent from The Witcher that is just a blast to play. Like, I spent hours just playing that part of the DLC, not even playing through King Knight's story. Like, it's what they're doing with that game is just phenomenal. They've put together a really great package.
All right, then. So, the list as it currently stands is as follows. Number 12, PUBG. Number 11, Doom. Oh, I should mention, PUBG was submitted by AJ. Doom was submitted by Alex. Tetris Effect at number 10 by Alex. Number 9, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild by Mitch. Number 8, The Witcher 3 by AJ. Number 7, Overwatch by AJ. Number 6, Destiny 2 by Alex. Number 5, Shovel Knight by Mitch. Number 4, Red Dead Redemption 2 by Alex. Number 3, God of War 2018 by Mitch. Number 2, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate by Mitch. And number 1, Pokemon Go by AJ. Now, before we go into round 2, I need to let everybody in the audience know that at the moment, neither Doom nor PUBG are eligible for any points. Numbers 6 through 10 are eligible for 1 point, and numbers 1 through 5 are eligible each for 2 points.
So if you want to know, at the moment, the point balance stands at AJ with 4, Alex with 4, and Mitch with 7.
Thank you, Mitch.
I got you.
Knowing that information off the top of your head does not give you an advantage in the next round, however.
I was just keeping track. Scroll down in the doc.
All right.
Just helping out my fellow host.
I appreciate it very much. In any case, we're on now to the second round. And in the second round, I'm going to ask each person to consider one game that I previously put rather low on the list and argue why it deserves to be better than specifically one other game on the list. And if I think that your argument is persuasive, I'll put it above. If I do not think it's persuasive, it will remain as it currently is. Clear as mud? Okay, good. AJ, what game do you have on this list that you think deserves to go above one of your competitors' choices?
Oh boy. I'm looking at PUBG, and I think specifically...
Now, it needs to be reminded, PUBG is currently at the bottom of this list, and this is a game that has had a fair bit of bad mojo surrounding it throughout the entirety of this game. So this is a risky move. You know that, right?
I absolutely understand, and I am willing to take this risk. I think it deserves to go above Shovel Knight.
All right.
One thing that rarely gets talked about in the greater scheme of games itself is the marketplace in which the game was purchased. Okay. A lot of the talk in marketplaces and on whether it be PlayStation or Xbox or Steam, PC for some of us dorks, is specifically when it comes to something like loot box. Now, PUBG, not perfect, also has loot boxes, bit of a dirty word in the game space, which is great. So does Overwatch. It also has loot boxes. So does Destiny. It also has loot boxes. So when you think of the marketplace and anybody's aversion to it is to buying items in a game, one, it's you don't want to buy anything for competitive advantage. PUBG doesn't have that. That's great. But cosmetics, why can't you just buy cosmetic, specifically the cosmetic that you want to make your character look the way you want it to? In PUBG, you can absolutely do that through the Steam marketplace in a market that is controlled by the people. So it's not like you're paying $5 for a shirt. You might one day, but the next day, the market for that shirt might crash. Suddenly, it's only worth 3 cents, but you really wanted that shirt. You can get it for 3 cents. 3 cents to buy what you want, instead of $1 for a key to open a chest to maybe get it. Go to the marketplace and buy any cosmetic item that you want to customize your character the way you want. And that is something that people tend to completely overlook. And I think it would be a great disservice to this list to not have such an achievement be placed upon it.
before I decide whether or not to put PUBG above Shovel Knight, I need to break the fourth wall for just a quick little sec here. Mitch George brought up a very important point, which is that does he get a chance to rebuke what you're saying, considering he's arguing against his game? It's a fair point, which we didn't really kind of bring up earlier. I mean, I realized that, like, obviously you wouldn't appreciate AJ if he had an opportunity to speak up against what you're saying, but do you think that that's fair?
I think if he has a point, because I realize the two games are different, if he has a point that can greatly outweigh the point that I made with regards to the marketplace and being able to buy whatever you want when you want, I think he should be given the opportunity, just like I would hope to have the opportunity to defend my game.
Alex, do you have any opinion on the matter?
No, I think that's completely fair. I think, like, you should be able to get rebuttals. I think we should try to not go overboard because honestly, at a certain point, we could just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I think you just try to keep it to, like, mostly just defending or rebuttaling against the point that was made and not trying to bring up new points. Might be difficult, but...
All right, Mitch, you don't have a lot of time, but I'm seeing you the floor to offer your rebuttal.
Okay, I have a lot to say. I will keep it to that one point as per Alex's request. You have a marketplace that allows whoever... The market dictates what people want and what they don't want. You know what's nicer than having a marketplace? Is a game where you pay a single price and you get all of the content. Doesn't matter when it's released, however many years after it came out. The original Shovel Knight, I believe, came out in 2014, right? And DLC all the way up until December of this past year, 2019, was free to anyone who bought the entire Shovel Knight Treasure Trove collection. And that value for the dollar you spend greatly outweighs anything a marketplace may decide to do for cosmetics in a game where, honestly, we're getting away from a time where cosmetics were just cheat codes or unlocks, and now you have to pay for these things, which I don't think is fair to the consumer. And what is fair is just having one price for one game end to end.
See, here's the thing. AJ, you argue your point really, really well, but I feel like it was kind of a mistake to specifically put PUBG up against Shovel Knight. Like, it wasn't even like an apples to oranges kind of comparison. It was like an apples to computers. Like, it was just like, here's, like, let's say why this one vastly different thing is better than this other vastly different thing. I feel like if you had put it up against something like, I don't know, like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate or Red Dead Redemption 2, where I feel like there is at least this similarity in that they are these two, like, big AAA games that offer online services in some sort of capacity, I would have at least been able to, side with you a little bit more. But I feel like you were bringing up a lot of points about how, PUBG is doing all these things for online games that other online games are doing. That I'm like, well, how is this really kind of relevant to why it's better or not better than Shovel Knight?
I hear you. We will have to defer to your judgment.
Yeah. The game is not over for you yet, sir, but I'm afraid that PUBG is going to have to stay where it currently is for the time being. Alex, what game do you want to try and put higher on this list?
Doom is criminally too low, for sure. And so I'm going to take a big risk here and have it go say that it should be at number 3 where God of War is. Now, here's the thing. God of War, it's a good game. It's very good. It's one of my favorites on the PS4. Not gonna lie. I can't deny that aspect of it. But here's what I will say. God of War does very similar things to every other Sony first party. It might do it very well, like it does it well, like telling a very unique story, but you still can get that experience in Uncharted 4. You can get that experience in The Last of Us, especially The Last of Us. And you can get that experience in most of Sony's other first-party games. That's what they do, is they make third-person action-adventure games. Doom is different. Doom does something unique to, unlike most of the games that came out this generation. It doesn't need to be a cinematic experience. It doesn't need to be an interactive story. It doesn't need to have all these buzzwords associated with it. You know what Doom is? Doom is a fun game. Doom is a fun game that you can load up at any time, anywhere in it, and just have a great time. You can play it on any of the difficulties, and it's just a fun shooter that does something different. It's like, I just have to keep bringing up the other points that I made earlier, is just, it's so kinetic, it's so fast, it's so fluid in all of its animations, and it just feels good to play, and you can play it on anything that's available for this generation. And I think, like, it has a story. It doesn't need to be its focus, though, which I feel like so many games in Sony's first party, that's kind of the thing that they've got going for it, where I feel like if I want to have a great cinematic experience, I'm going to go watch a movie.
You're arguing that movies are more cinematic than video games on a video game podcast.
Mitch, once more, keep it short, sweet, and concise.
I will agree with you on the fact that many of Sony's first-party studios develop games with phenomenal stories. Each one, though, does bring something unique to the table. We haven't seen a story like Kratos's and Atreus's when it comes to the redemption of the main antagonist, where it comes to how he treats his son. Like, there are story points we get to in that game, regardless of the mechanics of the game. The game plays really well. It's very fluid. It's very dynamic. All the animations, you feel every strike of that axe in that game. It's not that it's as fast or difficult to look at, especially on a smaller screen like the Switch, the way that Doom is. And it's easy enough to follow the combat instead of getting lost in how much ammo do I need, where's this, where's that, I don't know. Whereas you have a game that knows the story it wants to tell, optimizes for the hardware that it's on, so it's able to tell that story without hiccups, unlike how on the Nintendo Switch I had hiccups while playing Doom 2016. Also, stop picking on my games.
You just have the most in the top 5. I've got to be gunning for you.
Because they're the best games of the generation.
I feel very conflicted about this. However, I will say, I only recently started God of War. I'm not super far into it. What I played of it, I had some mixed feelings about, because I distinctly remember, swinging around Kratos' axe and attacking some enemies and thinking, this combat system feels a lot more, how should I say, it feels a lot more similar to a lot of other AAA games around it. It doesn't really kind of remind me of the distinct God of War combat that I enjoyed so much before. And Alex, you raised a very important point, which is that Doom, although it is a shooter that feels really distinctly different from everything else around it. So I'm afraid,
Absolutely.
Mitch, that I'm going to have to put Doom above God of War 2018.
Hell yes, justice is served! Oh man, I've never been happier to see anything in my entire life.
This list is bullshit.
All right, Mitch, it's time to put your words into action. Tell us what you think is bullshit.
What's bullshit about this list is how criminally low The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is on it. And I'm gonna regret this, but I would argue that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a better video game than Pokemon Go. My reasons for this are that Pokemon Go is not a good game. It is a fun experience. It is a social experiment that I would argue did achieve what it set out to do. But it's also a game littered with microtransactions, has led to numerous real-life arguments and fights over digital goods, which no one wants to see. It was incredibly buggy when it first launched. It was almost impossible to get into the game, and when you could, all you were catching were Pidgeys. It continues to be buggy to this day, how with each subsequent update, Niantic finds some way to break something that did work previously. For example, they had an IV checker in the search bar of the game. For whatever reason, 2 or 3 updates ago, it just stopped working. They did end up fixing it, but the game has been a buggy mess since it launched, and this is coming from someone who plays this game every day. It is a fun experience. It had its moment in the sun that summer that it came out, but they have not done enough to improve the game over time. All they've done is thrown more Pokemon into it and thrown more microtransactions and ways to put money into this game than any other game on this list. And for that anti-consumerism, I believe that The Legend of Zelda, which is a self-contained, beautiful, single-player, narrative-driven, yet totally open-ended experience that does something different than anything else on this list, where every other game on this list is driven towards a goal. Legend of Zelda, you can do it however you want. Pokemon Go is just out to try and get your money.
AJ, why is Mitch wrong?
Before I get to that, I'd like to call a brief pause here. I just want some clarification on the rules. If my argument for PUBG and the marketplace had nothing to do with Shovel Knight, we're arguing best game of the generation, correct?
Uh-huh.
Yes, and Pokemon Go is mechanically not a good game.
It's still a game, and
It is a game, I will give you that.
yes. In terms of Pokemon Go versus Breath of the Wild, both are video games, and both are very, very great experiences. Only one of them can you say got people out of the house and got them moving. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, in that regard, just another video game. Pokemon Go does something different. Your point in the market thing, there is no market in Breath of the Wild, but I made the PUBG argument of a market, and your argument was still there is no market in Shovel Knight. Okay, so that means we should switch Shovel Knight and PUBG then, because if we can make the same argument and potentially switch Pokemon Go, then we should there should be an argument to switch Shovel Knight and PUBG. I think the overall story of all of these games, debated or not, I think you know the truth, and I defer to your judgment.
But I'm arguing the same point that kept Shovel Knight where it is. So by your logic, Zelda should go above Pokemon Go.
To be honest, the fact of the matter is that I continue to want to take steps when I play Pokemon Go every day, and I don't know when I'm ever going to step once more into Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. The list stays as it currently is.
Got him!
Oh man, I was really hoping it was gonna get higher. I really wanted to argue against Breath of the Wild. I was really hoping you were gonna pick Red Dead to go against it.
I almost did. I
actually have like some good arguments against why I don't think it's that great of a game. Like I think it's good, I just don't think it's like amazing.
It's better than many games that are on this list, and where it is right now is a travesty. And the internet would agree with me. Critics around the world would agree with me by the fact that it is, the third highest rated video game of all time on Metacritic? Something like that? And where's Pokemon Go on that list?
Okay, let's come back to Earth, because we have one last round that we need to get through, and it's about 16 minutes to 9 p.m., so let's try and get this over with as soon, but also not to, rush it as much as possible. In the third round, I am going to bring forth 3 new games, and I will select one of you at random to basically vouch for why this game is a great game. And I will decide based on that where it lands on the list, and that may potentially bump up your current points. Alex, I see that you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I've got to what if we've never played the game? Do we still have to argue it, or can we say that and you pick a different game?
I will, if you have not played the game, what I've decided is that I will re-roll what current game you're going to choose. And if the second time around, even if you haven't played it, you still got to argue for it.
Fair enough.
All right. I'm going to head over to ye olde random number generator.com. I'm going to input a minimum and a maximum values of 1 and 3. And Alex, you're going to be up first.
All right, hit me.
I inputted the random number generator again, and I arrived at Resident Evil 2 Remake.
Ooh, okay. I've played it. I've only played like 2 hours of it. I can argue it if you want, but I just thought I would clarify that.
Okay. Once again, the rules are you can argue for it, or you can choose to roll again, but if the second one is something that you're not comfortable with, too bad.
Okay.
I was going to say, I thought the rules were if we'd played it.
It's up to you.
I know you're...
It's up to you.
I mean, ultimately...
I'll argue it. Honestly, I don't mind.
I mean, to break the fourth wall for just a second here, like, I think that ultimately... Do you guys think that it's fair for them to request to be able to roll it again?
For sure. If you want to take the risk, go for it.
Yeah, and that's what I like about it. I like the idea of like, hey, you could potentially land on a game that you've played a little bit more, or you could potentially land on something even worse. That's why I was saying, yeah.
You know what? I'll stick to Resident Evil 2. I don't like my chances.
Okay. All right. Alex, why is Resident Evil 2 one of the greatest games of the previous console generation?
Well, I think Resident Evil 2 does something very special. It takes a game from the PlayStation 1 that was very, very renowned, which being Resident Evil 2, obviously, and makes it an even better game. It completely turned it around. It took all of the things that made Resident Evil great, which is being the horror factor, and really like enhance that but with modern sensibilities to it as well, like the fact that you can aim and shoot at the same time. I think things that should be really appreciated about it is like the sound design. I got up to the point where you do reach Mr. X. I don't know how long that is into the game, and just the fact that, I mean, Mr. X in general is one of the things that makes that game so incredibly tense all the time. And I think when you're making a horror game, to have somebody be on edge all the time is, I think, kind of what you're aiming for in a lot of ways. And so just the sound design with him, of how you can hear him in like 3 rooms away, you can hear those faint footsteps, I think is something that's really great. I think the fact that he's always there in like, have you guys seen that clip of like people going on the PC version, going like outside the game walls, and you can actually see that Mr. X is always persistent. He's always going to be around. And so I think things like that are just like, the little details like that, I think, are so crucial to that game. And I think the lighting is really great. It looks amazing on PS4. And also, I can't attest to this personally, but it's a very short experience for what, which, you know, with people who have really busy lives, sometimes shorter is better. And so you get just enough, maybe wanting more, but you still get a very satisfying experience regardless. So I think it's a very, very amazing horror experience that I can't wait to play more of it. I'm still probably going to pick up Resident Evil 3 in just the hopes that it's anywhere near how great Resident Evil 2 Remake was.
I think you raised a lot of really interesting, good points. And you know what? At the Game Awards this past year, well, unfortunately, Resident Evil 2 Remake got a little bit snubbed. It did have that really cool song during the Game Awards where that guy was just going ham on the microphone. So for that reason, I'm going to slide it in at number 5, above Red Dead Redemption 2.
Above games that won Game of the Year at the Game Awards. How dare you, sir?
The Game Awards isn't an objective body. They're subjective, just like everyone else.
And this list is subjectively horse shit.
Okay.
I can taste the salt.
You just pushed Zelda off this list. I hope you know that. Like,
did I?
Yes.
I didn't even know.
That's why this doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, it would have been a little bit cruel if I put Resident Evil 2 Remake directly at number 11.
But you had to, because Zelda's a better game than Resident Evil 2.
I wouldn't.
All right. Mitch, it's your lucky day. The random number generator gods have chosen you to go next. And the game that you are going to be arguing is Sunset Overdrive.
Don't own an Xbox One.
Okay. You want me to reroll?
Please.
All right. Okay. The new game that you're going to be arguing, Horizon Zero Dawn.
All right. I can argue for that. Horizon Zero Dawn is a game that actually took me a couple of attempts to really get into. I'm the kind of gamer where if I walk away from an open world experience for a bit and come back to it, I have no idea where I'm starting from. So I end up typically restarting that game. Horizon was one of those games for me. That's just my gaming habits. It says nothing about the game itself. I came back to the game when they released the Frozen Wilds DLC, and I was able to get the whole complete box as one succinct game. And my God, the variety of weapon, the way you can approach every problem, the way you can just run away from whatever's chasing you, a la Mr. X, but cooler because they're robot dinosaurs. The way the game handles its story, the characters, again, going back to this point of Sony first party know how to write characters really well. You're looking at a studio that had really only made the Killzone games up to this point, and to have a game come out of that studio, given the love and care that Horizon Zero Dawn was given the time to gestate appropriately it came out and it was a banger right out of the gate, made even better when they released the DLC. So much so that people are already anticipating a game that hasn't been announced for whatever system it may come out on, most likely the PlayStation 5, because people are so ravenous for how well crafted that story was that they need more. And I'm one of those people.
You know, you brought up a very good, important point there, which is that Horizon Zero Dawn did get a very good piece of DLC. And it kind of reminded me of the fact that, you know, Red Dead Redemption 2, while a fantastic game, has yet to receive a piece of narrative DLC and probably never will.
Can I argue that?
Just
one sentence?
Just
I didn't get to argue Zelda dropping off this list. You get nothing.
You didn't ask.
I was respecting the rules of the game, sir.
I'm going to bend the rules.
As much as I disagree.
Fight for your rights.
5 seconds, Alex. What's your sentence?
The prologue was 9 hours long.
I don't.
You can say that about half the games on this list.
The epilogue. The epilogue. That's what I meant.
I don't really feel like that was arguing against.
The epilogue was basically its own game.
I don't really feel like that was arguing against the point I was trying to make. Unfortunately,
you're referring to the epilogue of Red Dead 2, right? Because I never played it.
Yes.
The
epilogue was basically its own game.
Right.
That's what I meant for Red Dead Redemption 2.
Still, though, I feel like we're probably never going to get Red Dead Redemption 2 Undead Nightmare. So for that reason, I've got to put Horizon at number 6.
Fine.
All right, AJ. By process of elimination, you're the last one. Are you excited? Nervous? How are you feeling?
A little bit of A, a little bit of B. I think in terms of ownership, I have an Xbox, and I have played Sunset Overdrive. In terms of ability to debate, I tend to get jumbled. So let's try this out.
All right. The game that you're going to be debating is Sunset Overdrive.
Wow. Huh. Were there other games on the list that you got to choose, or was it just the 3?
If I let you roll again, I'll tell you the rest of the games that were on the list remaining, just because at that point you can't choose them.
I do not wish to roll again.
In that case, I do want to say that the other games that I had noted down were Nier Automata, Devil May Cry 5, Hitman, Wolfenstein: The New Colossus, Spider-Man, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and Uncharted 4.
Damn, I should have re-rolled. I played like all of those.
I think somehow got Sunset Overdrive again. Great. With all those on the list.
All right, AJ?
So, Sunset Overdrive was Insomniac's one hope for the Xbox One. The Xbox One was already down on its luck when it first released, and had a very, very difficult time on its own to try and gain any traction to get away from the stigma that was the Kinect, and get away from any of the other garbage that Don Matrick had left the Xbox with. Sunset Overdrive came out, and it was bright, beautiful, colorful, fast-paced, pop-punk action, exhilarating movement. So fluid in its controls. It's really, really hard to articulate how just joyful it was when I played this game, especially when it came out, when I had this regret buy in my mind of, oh man, I bought an Xbox. Well, I hope Halo's good one day. Sunset Overdrive came out and totally flipped that in my mind. PlayStation fans are missing out on this, what is seriously some sort of hidden gem masterpiece. That its only knock against it is the fact that it came out early on the Xbox One, and not enough people got to play it.
I only have one last question. You said how this game kind of came out at a bit of an awkward, weird time for the Xbox One. How, the kind of the trends were down on the console, and how it kind of stood, valiantly against these trends, and kind of, showed that you could create a really great, really, powerful is a weird word, but really polished, really fun, console exclusive for the console. However, I noticed that this game has a lot of energy drinks in it, and that when people drink the energy drinks, they turn into monsters. How do you feel about that? Because I personally like energy drinks quite a lot, and I don't know how I feel about this game, styling on that.
Back in the early 2010s, energy drinks had a little bit of this sort of bad rap, and specifically Sunset Overdrive was a bit of a commentary on how people get addicted to things and mindless addiction to things that aren't necessarily good for them. Energy drinks taste great. I love energy drinks too. It did not deter me from purchasing energy drinks at all in the future, personally. But it was a commentary on, hey, be careful. Don't overdo it.
You know what? I like that. I like that. You kind of spun this thing that I feared would kind of crater my opinion of this game into something kind of much more positive and fair, which was, it's not that energy drinks are bad. It's just, everything in moderation, which I feel is a good lesson to live by. Folks, after much deliberation within my head, I've decided that this seemingly energy drink hating game that actually does not hate energy drinks as much as I once thought it does is going to be going above God of War.
Oh! Wow.
I would be mad if that didn't just win me the game.
Oh yeah, it did. Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, but I still got number one, so I win, really. Who really wins?
This list is bullshit. I hate this list.
Okay, guys, let's wrap this up.
I feel like that was intentional because it's 9 o'clock.
I'm okay with
so
it.
You wanted this to be over.
Sorry, I took a few too many seconds to kind of marvel at this glorious, amazing, immaculate list that I assembled over the course of the past.
You didn't even put the right name for the game in. You really want this to be over. We're not letting you do this again.
All right. I mean, we've already decided ahead of time that we're going to be able to switch things up in subsequent times that we play this game, and
Absolutely.
each host will. Oh well, hold on. Now hold on a second. I was setting it up. I was setting things up for you to say, what the results were. But yeah, we previously decided that in subsequent, versions of this game, we will be letting different people host, and when they host, we will be, letting them apply their own gimmicks to the third round of this game to make things a little bit more interesting. Mitch, you've been tallying up the scores this entire time. Who won?
Oh wait, shit, that's a tie. Oh wait, no, it isn't. No, we're good. Yeah, sorry. So, in third place with 4 points because he only has 2 games in the top 10, AJ. And your winner with the 2nd, 5th, 7th, and 9th games of this generation, yours truly.
Wow, I don't even get any recognition. That's how salty you were that Breath of the Wild
No,
didn't get.
no. Well, the whole suspense is if I said you in second, then you already know I'm in first. The winner should get, that, woo, yeah, go me. And then Alex plays second.
No.
Fine, as long as Breath of the Wild wasn't on this list, I'm fine.
Which is such bullshit and you know it.
Now, I was going to say, Mitch, was it really worth, making such a fuss this entire time? You complained time and time and time again how you were being shortchanged, and yet look at you. You managed to pull off the victory anyways.
That's because I respect you as a game master so much. But no, the game's still bullshit. I should have argued Breath of the Wild against a different game. It's better than Destiny 2. It's better than Shovel Knight. It's better than Red Dead 2. It's better than Horizon. It's better than RE2.
I didn't hear you say that it was better than Pokemon Go, so I suppose I'll have to take that as fact.
There was a whole round of the game where I argued it was better than Pokemon Go, and you know I'm right.
Just cut his mic. Cut it.
Yeah, sorry. We're going to have to... We're breaking up with you, Mitch. We can't hear what you're saying. And that's the end of 5x5. Thank you all. You can follow myself on Twitter at AlexKozina, AlexKozina, and also on Twitch at KoziBearLive, KoziBearLive. Whoops, went through that a little bit fast, but it's okay. AJ, where can they catch you?
I'm Times Hero on everything. Capital T, capital H.
Alex, where can they catch you?
On Twitter, I am blatantly_Alex, and on Instagram, I am just blatantly Alex.
Sore loser, or wait, sore winner. I was like a little confused there with my words.
I've never felt this bad winning something, other than when I play couch co-op games with my fiance. You can find me on all the socials at Mr. Mitch George. That's MR Mitch George, the way it sounds. You can also find me running the social accounts for the Kinda Funny Toronto fan group. So you can find us on Facebook at Kinda Funny Toronto and on Twitter at Kinda Funny TO.
And with that, we'll see you all next week
In the YYZ.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-bum.
in the YYZ.
And
Peace out, everybody.